I think we're like, good to be here. So just you can hear me. All right. Well, I'll tell some stories then. Just for your wife. Hello, Greg's wife. Let me tell you some stories. Once, when I was a young lad growing up in the country, um, interesting. You know what? I think every single time that I've tried to start a new live stream type thing, I've had technical issues. Oh, hello! Look at that. Hello, my Greg's wife. Good to see you. I can hear myself coming back through Greg's thing somehow, despite the fact that he's got headphones on. I love how authentic this is. This is so good. What's your name, Mrs. Greg?
Her name is Terry.
Terry. Hello, Terry. Good to see you. Yeah, you too. Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. Thank you. Oh, goodness me. Thank you. Lovely to meet you. You were saying before when you and I first started chatting in Google Hangout, you were saying that your microphone wasn't working because you had your microphone set up for the stream. So yeah, it's that old chestnut. So yeah, it's so frustrating, isn't it? Technology, and this is something that I think permeates everything we do, even when we're making courses, doing live streams, making YouTube videos. Technology is such a barrier; it can really hamper progress. It can get us stuck and get us confused. And instances like this is like, who the heck knows what's going on? And there's so many levers to pull. And so I think one of the things we're probably going to talk about today, Greg, was AI. So let me go on a little AI ramble about that. And for me, the thought of AI being able to type in what's going wrong, please fix it, and have it fixed perfectly is very interesting, very attractive from that side of things. But my suspicion is that there's going to be even more things to manage, even more things to take care of, even more things to do. So AI is going to solve some problems like, oh, what's the headline that I use for this video, or what are some ideas that I could create for my game? So I think AI is going to solve some things there, or give us some ideas. But then there's going to be a million more opportunities open up where I'm like, how do I connect that AI to that plugin, to that software, to this tool, and it's version 7. Oh, there's a version 8 come out. I can see the world from a technology point of view, maybe getting more complex. But if anyone is out there watching, working on AI, please do it so we can just push a button and tech just works. Wouldn't that be nice? Tech like this, like already created software. We don't want to push a button that, hey, make a game, and the game's just made. I think that would be unfulfilling to make a game that way. But gee whiz, it'd be nice just to have technology work the way it's supposed to. Yes. Um, okay. For those of you who can't hear you, Greg, and maybe can't see you because I'm not sure what you're sharing at the moment, Greg's having technical difficulties. So I'm just going to ramble for a while. Maybe you can ask me a question, Greg, and then I can answer that question in the normal long-winded nonsense way that I answer questions. And that'll give you some time to just type out the code that makes software make your microphone work. Look at that. Sorry. I'm like, hey, can you fix your thing and ask me a question? You're like, no, Rick, I cannot. You did ask me some pre-questions that your community has asked you. So let me see if I can remember them. Some of them are about Game Dev TV. So a little introduction for those who don't know me or what I'm up to or what our organization does. Game Dev TV, we help people get good at game development. That's what we're up to. That's our mission. through teaching game engines, programming, 3D art, 2D art, game design, etc. We're constantly talking to our community and listening. What is it that folks are interested in? What would you like us to create? What courses would you like us to create? And something that happened, I think, I don't know how many years ago, people started mentioning Godot. And we took that seriously and we did a Kickstarter. We ran a Godot course and it was pretty good course and it stuck around for a while and got a little bit out of date. And we didn't update it. And it got so out of date, we decided to close the doors and then took our time and made a new Godot course because some people were asking about it. Then all of a sudden, Shazam, Unity goes and does something absolutely ridiculous. Like, hey, we're just going to charge everyone all the money for no reason and blah. So then the world got pretty upset and there was a whole bunch of, hey, can you make some more Godot content because we're interested in that now. And so we've spent the past 6 months or so, I think, diving into Godot. We've got 5 or so courses now teaching mobile in Godot, multiplayer in Godot, the sort of things that if you were learning Unity, you'd be interested in learning as well. So we're a very engine agnostic organization. It's not a case of saying we're the Godot team or we're the Unity team. We're the team that makes whatever content and whatever educational content the community is interested in as best we can to try to make that flow and that learning journey nice and clear. However, because we've been creating Godot content doesn't mean we're abandoning Unity. I personally think Unity is a great engine. Like, it's a really good engine. And I personally have some friends who work at Unity and are good people. And despite the fact that Unity as an organization made what I think were some, I'm going to call them tactical errors. Okay. So in business, you get there and you say, okay, here's a thing we can do that might be unpopular, but we think it will be okay. And often that's by committee. And the committee is talking to themselves so often they don't even realize that, oh, maybe we should or shouldn't do this particular thing. So you can get that groupthink type thing happening. Sometimes it's deliberate. Okay, let's do this because we know it's going to make some people pretty upset, but we'll do that for a particular reason that, me down in the streets. I don't know why they did it. And sometimes they're just dumb. Sometimes people do, oh, let's do this, and it doesn't work out. So I personally don't think what Unity did was evil, despite the fact that some people are characterizing it that way. It was just a business decision that they thought they needed to do to protect their shareholders because they're a publicly traded company. And I think by doing that, they made a gigantic mistake. And that mistake was to annoy the people who it would affect today and annoy the people that it would affect in the future. And as a result, I think they've undermined the next generation of game developers who might be using Unity but have decided not to. However, saying all that, I don't think Unity is a bad game engine. And I don't think Unity as an organization is evil. I think they just did something dumb because maybe they thought they could get away with it or whatever. I don't even know, and I don't want to speculate too much about that, as lots of folks have. But a little bit of what I wanted to say with this whole nonsensical rant is, it's still a great game engine. It's still, I think, worlds ahead of Godot in terms of the features that it offers, and I would like to see, as a community, that we continue to give Unity, the organization, feedback in terms of, hey, don't do that sort of thing again. That wasn't cool. But this part is okay, and we're fine with this, but we're not fine with that. And this is good, but not that. Like, we still need to vote with our voice. But I would like to see that we're being kind to people who say, I would still like to use Unity because I've spent the last 10 years learning Unity, and it's important to me that I keep using it. And I think there's been, in the world in general, I think a little bit more kindness and understanding would go a long way. And if you're the sort of person, or if you're someone who says, I don't like what Unity did, I'm not going to use it again, awesome. Awesome. Like I said before, our organization is engine agnostic. Godot, Unreal, fantastic engines, Game Maker, Construct 3. There's lots of options out there. But if you're really if Unity's your thing, then I think Unity is going to survive, maybe not thrive. It's going to survive, and I think it's still a great game engine. Have I bought you enough time, Greg? Yeah. Okay. So we'll assume that people can't hear the questions at the moment. Maybe from this stream you can edit it up and edit it in a way that, insert yourself back in, whatever. So apologies for the live stream watchers, but we'll tidy this up for the non-live stream watchers. So the question of how can you be successful with a day job and game development on the side? I think step one is to define what success means to you. So is success, I need to uh, I need to create games, products that make enough money so that I can leave my full-time job. Or maybe I want to make enough money to justify the amount of time I put into this. Or maybe success for you is I just want to create great things that I'm proud of that um, allow me to justify the amount. Oh, look, I want to do this full time. I want to really go for it. I want to have game development, my career, my living, the thing that I do. Then it's critical that you transform your relationship with game development from being an amateur to being a professional. What does it mean to be a professional? It means you're consistent. You sit at the computer from this time to this time, no matter what, no matter how tired you are, no matter what's going on in your life. You'll need to say no to a whole bunch of things. This is what a lot of successful people talk about, that succeeding in life is a conversation of what are you willing to lose? What's the cost you're willing to pay for this? So it could be, dang, I'm not going to watch Netflix for 2 years, or I'm not going to play video games for the next 2 years, or I'm not going to go out and socialize, on Fridays and Saturdays the way I used to. If you've already got a day job, and if you've got something else in your life, for example, a relationship or a family or a sporting activity, if you've got a second thing already, like second thing, I shouldn't refer to family as a second thing, but you're already pretty busy if you've got job and wife and or kids and or church and or something else that you're up to, then you need to say no to all the other things, all the other distractions. So that's thing number one, Greg, is to say, okay, I'm doing this professionally. That's number one. And then number two is to acknowledge the dance of failure. And I think a lot of successful indie game devs produce ideas quickly, get feedback on those ideas quickly, and are not precious if they see that it doesn't really have legs. And the mechanism of creating something, putting a little bit of placeholder art in there, asset store placeholder art, not ugly programmer art that we all like to create. So it looks okay, showing it to people. And if their feedback is, oh, that's pretty good, then maybe it's not quite there yet. If their feedback is, whoa, that knocked my socks off, then you've got something that you can invest more time and energy and love into. So those would be the two biggest buckets of how do you do game development as a side quest while you've got your full-time job. You have to be very professional about it, and you have to fail fast. You have to be comfortable with failing fast, because it might take you 1 or 2 or 5 years to get the skills, the ideas, the knowledge, the techniques in order to really have something that stands out. Actually, I'll give you a third one. I've got about 20 of these things, but I won't rant for that long. Give you a third one here, is try to stick within one genre. If you are relearning a new genre every few months, same genre and same engine, it's kind of, I don't see a lot of people chopping and changing engine, but with the whole Unity thing, there are a lot of people jumping engine. So try to stick with the same genre. If you're really, really, really into real-time strategies, then just do that. If you're really, really into racing car games, just do that. Even if you make a racing car game and no one likes it, make a different one, make a new one, put guns on the top of your racing cars, have it so it's permadeath if you touch the wall, try that there's jumps, try that it's the fastest game ever. So keep working within that genre, because then you're not having to reset the slate and go back to scratch, go back to zero. You can get better and better and better and better, and you can build upon what you've done already. And that way it's working. It's the whole working smarter rather than working harder thing. You have to work hard, but working smart as well is pretty important. Okay. Yeah, cool. Okay. So I've seems the audience can hear me at the moment, but not Greg. What he's saying is he's going to try a few different things, unplugging a thing, replugging a thing, plugging in his headset's got a microphone on it. It might disconnect me, and it sounds like before you disconnected me midway through a rant. Um, so apologies for anyone watching if that happened. So Greg's going to try some more stuff. Honestly, I don't think there's maybe 10% of live streams that have been perfectly the technology just works. It's so tricky.
Hello, can anybody hear me now on the stream? Yep. Let's see. I'm seeing it on my meter here, so I think, yeah. All right. All right. Okay, well, I think that is as loud as I can crank that up. So that was good. Good advice there, Rick. Um, what would you give? Oh, you're muted. Oh, Jason's story. All right, I
Okay,
think they can hear you now. I fixed you.
let me know when you can hear us both. Can
Oh, his
everyone hear
story.
both of us?
All right. Hopefully, we have worked out the kinks. So you were talking about sticking with one genre. So it's a little bit tricky for me because in addition to doing game development and creating games, I'm a YouTuber and I do a lot of game dev tutorials. And I guess you could consider retro arcade games a genre. So I show how to make old school classic arcade games from scratch in Unity. Um, but I mean, they cover the gamut, you know.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
I think retro arcade games is probably a genre unto itself. Like you've got a particular, depth of gameplay and art style. So I think yes, in terms of being focused on that. The question I'd have for you is: does it feel like every time you start a new game, even if it's an arcade retro game, does it feel like you're starting from scratch and saying, "How the heck am I going to make this thing fly or move?" Or like, I don't know, I've never even dealt with enemies before. How do I do that? Because that's the distinction I'm making here. That if you make a first person shooter and then a second first person shooter and a third first person shooter, by the time you get to the third one, you already know movement and jumping and level layouts and guns and ammo and all that kind of stuff. You've done that a couple of times, and then to get there and say, you know what? Maybe I'll add a jetpack. Oh, I haven't done a jetpack before, but that's one element that you can innovate on and flex your technical muscles and scratch the technical itch that I think a lot of us, particularly programmery folks, want to solve those technical problems. But if you're addicted to solving technical problems, and that's part of the reason that you're starting from zero each time, a whole new thing with whole new challenges and whole new problems, you can get in that cycle of game development becomes solving technical problems. And while it's an important part that you do that, what you're doing is trying to make a product that people enjoy. You're not, it's a little bit like no one ever reads the game design document. I spent a lot of time as a game designer and working with game designers, and like, that's a beautiful document, but that we're not selling that. What we're selling
mhm.
is this thing over here. So I don't care what the game design document looks like if it does a good job of communicating over there. So it's asking yourself the question, which bit is important to me in game development? Sometimes you need to do more of the things that you aren't really into: art direction and gameplay tuning and marketing, and that's a lot of the recipe for success.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Are you getting oh, getting feedback from your producer that it's not working again? Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, no, someone's saying that they've lost you now. Side note, I don't think you heard me before when I was having a fanboy moment about Jason's story, but hey, Jason's story watching. Hi, Jason. Good to
Okay.
see you.
My
Camping.
HyperX mic dropped out for some reason, but it's back now.
Okay, cool. Cool, cool.
All right.
Um, yeah, you know what's interesting, Greg? There's, I was listening to this just yesterday. A marketing person was talking about you need to appeal to the left brain and the right brain. Just mic check. Can everyone hear me okay? Um, so you need to appeal left brain and right brain. And sometimes the very functional, practical, I've made a game, it's got 17 levels, it's this kind of thing, it's got great graphics, that appeals to someone's logic of, okay, that looks like a worthy game to play. But the emotional side of it, I think if you're making games that are retro, you can appeal to nostalgia in a way that maybe if someone is, I don't know, 19 years old, they're not going to get why they're going to be, Gallagher, that looks dumb. But if someone has that nostalgia, then you're tapping into an emotion and you've got a marketing advantage. And so not everyone's going to be interested in that because they won't have the same nostalgic hook. But for you, if you find who's my target audience, what are they really into? What are they really asking for? And I'm going to give them that. For me, having, because I'm an old fella as well. And if you were to provide a game experience for me where it was a modern experience, modern feeling, because some of those old games are a little bit difficult to play, but a modern experience, but with a nostalgic feel, I'd be excited by that. Yeah, yeah, I'd give it a go.
Yeah, I had one viewer request that I recreate pole position,
Mm,
but they wanted me to actually show how to take a 2D game but make it look 3D like the original pole position. And that just sounds like torture to me because I've got a 3D game engine and I can put
mm,
a follow camera on it and make a racing game that's like pole position, but like you said, give it a modern, you know, more playable feel too. And I could still use some retro looking art and things, but I think that would be a lot easier to do given we have a 3D engine.
yep.
And I think it would probably be more fun to play as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Where did I see this? Just a random thought. I saw looking at some Adobe Premiere templates. I think there was a template that could reduce the frame rate so it made it look like stop motion. And it was really interesting. It's like fluid graphics. And then as soon as you do this frame rate, it looked really cool. It had a style to it. And we need to be careful when we're looking at what can the engine do. Well, the engine can do 120 frames per second beautifully, so I guess that's what I'll do. If you could get there and say, well, what's the retro, what's the nostalgia? Part of it is the graphics, 8-bit, 16-bit, whatever bits it might be. That's part of it, but it's kind of janky. It's like tick 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 as it moves. So you could do something in a really crisp way in a brand new engine, but then constrain it so you give that vibe so it does feel retro, but smooth retro, if that even makes
Hmm.
sense. So I think that's worth playing around with. And you don't want to just get there and say, well, I'll make the graphics look a little bit crappier because that's retro. It's like, well, no. Or, I'll get there and I'll just shove 2D into this brilliant 3D engine. Well, you don't have to. And, what is it about pole position? Part of it is just it's a little bit like caricatures in a way. This whole kind of puppet show of there's a puppet that's slowly scaling down, which means it's getting further away, or scaling up, which is getting closer, and the track kind of goes duck, 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 duck. And I think if you can recreate that using the modern tools to simulate nostalgia, then there's something interesting about that.
Yeah. Well, cool. I had a couple other questions that I had thought about asking you. If I can bring that up. Um, so you started out doing game development and for some pretty big brands, right? So what inspired you to transition from actually doing game development to teaching and doing courses on game development?
Yeah, good question. I was in Vancouver, British Columbia, over in Canada, working in the games industry and working in some pretty cool studios, making some pretty cool stuff, but incredibly frustrated with the process, particularly working with a publisher. The relationship there, for me, as someone who is very creative, I'm a game designer, I'm a game creator. I'm not so much a programmer, I'm not so much an artist. And lots of ideas, and this would be great, and this is important for the player if we tune it from 5 to 7. And the reality of when you're in a big studio is you need someone with a ton of money to fund that studio, fund the game, and often that means they need to attach an existing intellectual property to it, because then you've got an immediate audience. So I worked on IPs like Captain America, for example, and also worked on some Mario IP, which was, kind of highlight of my career. That was really fun, working on a Mario game. That was super cool. But what happens is a couple of things. One is the publisher has full control over, do we like it or not like it? Do we keep funding it? So I worked on a few games that just got shut down. One was because there was a writer's strike in Hollywood, and that was incredibly deflating and frustrating. Worked on a game that a few games that just kind of got put on pause. And then some games as well where the publisher would say, well, you know what's really cool at the moment is this game, so please make that game, but with our particular intellectual property. And for me, looking at it saying, yeah, but in 2 years' time when we finish this game, that's not going to be as compelling anymore. So anyway, I got frustrated with a lot of that side of the industry. I didn't feel like I was making games. I felt like I was just part of a big machine. So I decided to start my own indie game studio and to make games that I thought were making a positive impact in the world. And that kind of scratched a different itch of mine, to not just make mindless games that are trying to get kids to sit there for 20 hours in front of the computer. Not that there's anything inherently bad about that, but it just wasn't exciting me to do that. So I worked on my own games, and that was fine. It's tough. It's super tough, as anyone out there knows who's trying to have an indie studio. It's tough. How am I going to pay my folks? How am I going to get investment money? How's the product going to do? And so on. And for me, my exit out of that was to sell my indie studio to PopCap, which is owned by EA. So technically it was an EA acquisition, but I had a lot of respect for PopCap, Bejeweled, Plants vs. Zombies. I'd met the team. They were headquartered in Seattle. So I was very interested in working with them and being part of that. But then, working within that studio for about a year, EA said, we're only going to keep open the game teams that have sort of, potential to make $100 million or $1 billion. And so they closed a lot of studios, which was cool. That's great. Not a problem, because that's their prerogative to do that. But all of that journey, Greg, led me to look at what I'd actually created and be completely disappointed by it. When people, oh, you worked in games. What games have you made? Well, I kind of worked on a Transformers game for a while, but I got moved off that. And I worked on this game, but then I got shut down. Worked on that game, but it didn't. And so I was left very, very sad with whatever it was, 10 years of work for just a couple of games that I wasn't super proud of at the end of it. And I looked at, what am I really excited by? I'm really excited to spend an afternoon making a quirky little thing where I make something jump and it's really difficult and there's things flying at you. And I say to my friend, see if you can last 10 seconds. I'm like, that's what a game is. It's the game moment. It's the pure game design of something that's fun. And so I just scaled my whole perception of games down to something quite narrow in terms of what I was excited by, and looked around and saw that there were a lot of people out there struggling with the things I'd struggled with. How do I start a studio and what do I do? And also struggling with, where do I start? And struggling with, okay, I know how to make the thing jump, but no one likes it. What do I do? And I just got really hooked on the idea of rather than me trying to make one product that many people could play, I wanted to help many people make many products that many people could enjoy. And I just got to that stage of my journey where it was more important for me to help other people than it was for me to scratch my own itch of, look at this work of art I made. I kind of, I don't know, that didn't hold the same appeal that it did when I was young and had the spring in the step. I just got really excited to help others.
Well, I'd say you've been very successful at that. I mean, you definitely helped me. My first exposure to you was a course on Udemy, like before the pandemic, before I even really got back into game development. I was going through it was like an RPG game in
Hmm.
Unity. What was the guy you partnered with on that?
It was probably Sam.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, Sam. Yep.
And I over the years I have taken a ton of your courses, um, and a lot of them I've gotten through bundles. But
Mhm.
yeah, in fact, I was going to bring up your website for people here. So in addition to Game Dev TV, you've also got a bunch of courses on Udemy. Do you still publish to Udemy or?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same courses that you can buy in either place. A lot of Game Dev TV's success is attributable to Udemy as a great platform. And when you sell something on a marketplace, if that marketplace does a good job of marketing and bringing traffic, then it's a great place to be. If you sell stuff on Amazon and it just kind of brings traffic, great. If you sell stuff on Steam, like if you launch a game on Steam and it just kind of brings traffic, that's great. That saves you the hassle of trying to be the marketing person yourself. And as we grew as an organization, a couple of things became apparent. One is that we don't want to be so beholden to one partner that if that partner changed or went away, then our business would go away as well. So you need to be a little bit careful. You protect yourself there. And also for us to be able to manage the relationship on our terms in our way, to talk to people the way we wanted to, it became clear that if we had our own site to do that, then we could offer people things in the way we wanted to, and we could talk to people in the way we wanted to, and not be at the constraints of Udemy. So it's been a great partnership. We still have, we sell our courses in both places, and they're the same products in two places.
And your offerings are so diverse because, like you've already talked about, you've got courses for different game engines. You got Unity, Unreal, Godot. There's just C++ and C Sharp courses, but you've also got a bunch of art courses like pixel art, 2D art. Your Blender courses are fantastic, and I think Grant is just
Yep.
fabulous. I love his
Grant
work.
Abbott, he's a good dude. He's one of my favorite people and one of the best Blender instructors in the world. He's got his own YouTube channel,
Hmm.
Gabbett Media. But yeah, chuck in Grant Abbott and you'll find him. But yeah, he's a really lovely guy.
And I love what you've been doing lately with the challenges where three of you will sit down and make a game with each with a different game engine. I notice you tend to use Unity. You're the Unity guy, I guess. Um, but
I'm sometimes the Unreal guy as well,
oh
Greg. And
yeah,
honestly, I'm like, oh, I forget what to do here. Everything's backwards.
well
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was using your Unreal course and going through that, and honestly, coming from Unity, I see the power of Unreal and some things that just work out of the box. But in terms of the environment itself, um, just the number of times I had to like restart the editor because I changed something, and then in order for it to take effect, you have to actually restart the editor. And I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with Unity for now.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Every time I use Unreal, I'm reminded of the analogy that Unreal feels like walking into, say, it's your aunt's house and she's a hoarder and got everything. Or hey, let's not be gender. Let's be gender neutral about this. Your relative's house and they are a hoarder and have kept everything over the years, and you say, "Oh, I could use a toothbrush because I didn't bring my toothbrush. You happen to have a toothbrush?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I've got 17 different colors and shapes, and I've got these ones that I've kept from years gone past. And they're rummaging through everything. It's over here somewhere. I just have to move that box and get that thing." That's for me what Unreal feels like every time I open it up. You've got everything is there, and you can do everything. And I just like my character to move a little bit faster. Thank you. how the heck can I find where is the speed located? So Unreal is powerful and busy. And once you've used it for a while, I think you know where a lot of things live. But for someone who's migrating from Unity into Unreal, it can feel very like there's a setting for everything and it's right there in front of me. Which one do I need?
Yeah, that was my experience. But I think it's awesome that there are so many options available to aspiring game devs. I still think that Unity is great for people starting out because it really is a jack of all trades engine where you can make any kind of game. You want to make a 2D platformer, you want to make a 3D game, you want to make a mobile game, you want to make a console game, whatever you want to make, you can pretty much make it in Unity. I feel like Unreal's a little bit more opinionated. It's really better suited like for FPS, really high fidelity graphic games,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
not to try and deter anybody from using it, but I just feel like for somebody just starting out in game development, and then you add all the community support, I just think Unity is a great option.
Yeah, we're in the process of creating an Unreal 2D course at the moment because a lot of folks, particularly the folks who are not happy about Unity and looking for alternatives, it's not obvious how to dive in and start making 2D in Unreal the way I think it's more obvious in Unity how to do it. So we're in the process of making a course and it's cool. There's some really cool things you can do in Unreal in terms of 2D. It's pretty similar, to be honest. It's like just constrain the camera and use, use images as opposed to 3D objects. Pretty similar. You can do a lot with 2D. But I think as I say to folks, I'm not sure if anyone watching at the moment needs this particular device, but if someone is new to game development, go use each engine for 2 weeks. And at the end of it, listen to your gut, because whether you're using Unity or Unreal or Godot, it'll mostly serve the needs of what you need it to do. I'm a little bit more skeptical about Godot being able to meet all of the needs. There's just so many things in Unity and in Unreal that have been created already. And Godot, I think, is catching up, but there's less things you get out of the box. But, all three of them are totally viable options.
Yeah, I think Unity's misstep was a big shot in the arm for Godot to draw support from the community to start investing in it more so they could have an alternative.
Yeah.
So what do
Yeah.
you think is the biggest? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I was going to ask, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the indie game community now and like in the next year?
The indie game community versus indie game developers. You know what? Pardon me. I've seen the industry up and down, ebb and flow, backwards and forwards for at least 20 years. There's always periods of time where people will say, there's too much competition. There's too much out there. There's too many things. There's always times where there's layoffs and people say, oh, the industry's in a real slump at the moment. Life is bad. And there's always times where it's boom and things are going really great. And there's always games coming out that are just basic, kind of fun, well-made indie games that become huge hits. So for me, I don't so much have my finger on the pulse of this current decline we're seeing at the moment. How does it compare to other declines? But there's still a lot of products succeeding. There's a lot of people who are making a living out of being a game developer. And there's a lot of people making cool things that they can be proud of, even if it's not paying the bills and letting them quit their job, they can still make it and be proud of it. So that's in terms of where the financial industry side of things is. The other side of it, where is it headed? When AI started making its big first, getting mainstream attention, particularly with ChatGPT, my immediate reaction was, oh goodness, soon, very soon, in the next few months, all you need to do is hop into a game engine and type make the game. I think everyone went straight to that. But as time's gone on, I can see that AI is going to be an excellent advisor, an excellent brainstorming partner, an excellent coach. It's going to be excellent at those things. But games are so complex, so complicated. Just how do I get my enemies to to get onto the screen, do something particularly interesting, and then to destroy themselves when I don't need them anymore. And I need that to link on level 1 to level 2, and I need to be able to remember it and save it. And I need to make sure that when the player does this particular thing, the enemy does that particular thing. There's so many things to juggle there. I think we're still a ways off AI knowing all the things we're trying to juggle. So where's it headed? AI is going to be a big, big part of what we do. AI is going to create shortcuts, and AI is going to make it a lot easier for a beginner to make something interesting very quickly. But I don't think AI is going to change the fact that indie game developers need to be clever folks who knuckle down for a long amount of time to make complicated bits of software.
Yeah, I agree. What would you think is the most exciting thing coming up for indie game developers? I'm
The
sure
most
AI is one of
exciting.
them, but
Yeah, well, I'm not excited about AI. I can't talk for all indie game developers. Maybe people are super excited. I personally hate AI, and the reason I hate it is because it's, for me, it's a little bit like if I'm a furniture maker and I love, stretching out the leather and cutting it and putting in the things by hand. If that's what I love, that's my hobby and that's my craft. Someone coming along and saying, "Hey, did you hear that they're building a new IKEA next door? So you don't need to make furniture anymore. Just go get it. And all you need to do is pull out your drill and just go, and you've made your furniture." Obviously, the market is going to be excited for the IKEA because it allows a lot of people to have quick wins. I just needed a couch. There it is. There's a couch. But anyone who is more of the purist, I just love the craft of making games. I don't think is necessarily going to be excited about that aspect of maybe things will become a little bit more out of my control. I don't need to be clever anymore. I'm just getting something else to do it. I feel like I'm kicking AI a little bit. What's going to be amazing is I don't even know when my code doesn't work. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I'll try that. No. Oh, I hadn't thought. Oh, yeah, that was it. So that's where AI is going to be a godsend. I'm excited for AI to help me find problems and fix them. And I'm excited for AI to come up with, to identify blind spots for me, things I didn't even realize I didn't know. I'm excited by that. But other things, honestly, game development, game design, making indie games is such a creative enterprise. I'm excited to see people break the rules and do things we've never seen before and try things we've never done before. And that could be using technology, AI, what the engines are coming up with, or it could just be trying a new thing that no one's tried before. That's what I'm excited about. And I think that's the magic of indie game development. You can move quick and you can take some risks.
yeah. So while I've got you here,
Mm-hmm.
and to kind of just fill a little bit of time, do you have any good dad jokes you can share with us?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if it's suitable. My favorite. Can I tell you my favorite dad joke
Yes.
of all time? Everyone's probably heard it, but that's the thing about dad jokes is everyone's always heard it. The one about a rabbit and a bear doing a poop, and they're in the forest. So apologies if this is inappropriate, and you can edit this out if chop it out. But a rabbit and a bear are in the forest doing a poop, and the bear turns to the rabbit and says, "Do you have problems with the poop sticking to your fur?" And the rabbit says, "No, I don't." So the bear picks up the rabbit and wipes his butt with it. That's my favorite dad joke of all time. My kids have heard that maybe 1,000 times.
Okay.
Dad. I knew one of their friends will come over. "Hey, let me tell you a joke." Dad.
Okay. I don't think that was terribly inappropriate.
Yeah, good. Good to hear.
So I'm looking in the chat just to see if there's any questions. One guy said he thinks that what keeps him in Unity is using Cinemachine and web development.
I love Cinemachine. It's so good.
Oh, I know. Yep. Oh, so someone is asking, is there any new course? Well, you already covered this a little bit. Any new course in development from Game Dev TV?
Mhm.
So you mentioned the Unreal 2D platformer.
Yep. Yeah, we're using Unreal 2D. We're making a course to teach that. this month, I think we're launching our audio design course to make sound effects that we've been wanting to make for years, just to show people how to make your own sound effects using Foley as well. So what have you got around your house? And, you know, pots and pans and the old drop the watermelon. I don't think we dropped the watermelon in the course, but you know what I'm talking about there. So we've got that going on. We've got a couple of other Unity courses. We've been trying to work on our Unity procedural generation course for a long time, and it's sort of there. It's sort of happening, but it's a little bit nebulous in terms of the when it'll be ready and available. What else have we been working on? Unreal. We've got some Unreal courses. We've got some Unity courses. Got a Godot course, a Godot shaders course that will be coming out pretty soon. And we're also spending some time thinking about not so much a course, but a program. What can we create to specifically help indie game developers that want to make some money on Steam? So taking that, we did a marketing workshop a couple of years ago that people seem to get a lot of value out of, doing something similar to that, but less so a workshop and more of a full-on program with all of the steps, going through all the stages to show people, if you're looking to make your first $1,000 on Steam, what do you need to do? How do you go about doing it? What's the recipe for doing that? So that's something that we're looking into very closely, and no time soon, but definitely have plans to work on that.
Yeah, your course on how to get a job in the video game industry was really good. And that talk you gave on that topic at Jason Wyman's Game Dev Guild, yeah, where you hit a lot of those points. That was helpful for me, even just to redo my resume, even though I didn't, get a game dev job. Just your tips on LinkedIn and updating your resume, and the whole idea of having an artifact that you can put in the hands of a prospective employer to target it to whatever their job is, the job description. That was really, really helpful.
Greg, it really breaks my heart when I see someone who says, I've sent out 100 resumes and no one's got back to me. You know, the industry is so hostile. I've got no chance. No one. And it's really, it breaks my heart because people haven't been shown the recipe, the formula for getting the attention of a potential employer. What do you need to do? And for me, I've hired lots of people and I've had lots of job interviews where I've looked at, is this person suitable? It's so difficult for an employer to figure out, should I take a risk on you or take a risk on that person? It's like, okay, they worked for 7 years doing that, but it's not quite relevant. They worked for 10 years doing this, but I'm not quite sure. I like them, but I like them. It's so difficult. And I think not just at getting a job, but working on a contract you might want to work on if you're a freelancer, or getting the rental application to succeed, or finding a life partner. There's so many things where if you're proactive and you take a different strategy, then you can have more success. So specifically with getting a job, if someone looks at my resume and sees, for example, 3 years of kind of tinkering with Unity, they don't know whether I'm good or bad or whatever. But if I go out of my way to create something specifically for them, take a couple of weeks, make a thing for them that's relevant. They make whatever, first-person shooters. I make something relevant to first-person shooters, maybe a reload mechanic. And I show it to them. Hey, I made a reload mechanic in Unity, and I know, hey, Game Studio, you use Unity, or we'll use whatever, Unreal. We've used Unity a few times. You use Unreal. I've used Unreal to make this reload mechanic. I know it's not ready to put in your game, but I love first-person shooters and I understand first-person shooters and I'm capable of creating this particular thing here. That makes the job of the employer so much easier to say, oh, we were going to put you in the team and have you do things like that. So you clearly like our genre and you clearly understand us and you clearly are proactive. Done. Mm-hmm. So that goes such a long way. And it makes me sad that no one is telling, well, not no one, but so many people don't understand that that's how you get a job. That's how you win a contract. That's how you stand out. That's how you market yourself. That's how you launch your game. That's how you, all of these things. Don't just do what everyone else is doing. Go and find the way to speak to the person you need to speak to.
Yep. So we have both in the live chat and in the comments that were submitted earlier, people asking if you're going to have any new Unity courses. One of them in particular was wondering if you're going to have more advanced or intermediate level Unity courses.
Yeah. Yes. So the procedural generation course I was talking about, the intention with that is to have something more advanced. It's really tricky. And to speak, let me put on my business owner hat for a second here. If we make a course that is a beginner course that a lot of people can enjoy and appreciate, then the price of that course can be $15 because a lot of people will be interested in it. If we then take all of those beginners and say, how many of those beginners are now still with us and still interested in learning, it drops down because a lot of people go off and do something else, or they've got the knowledge they need, or they, game development's not for me. So it's less people. And that's sort of at the intermediate level. And then of those people who've been working at it for 2 years and they know what they know and they've tried some things and done some game jams, and they're like, now I need the really advanced stuff. That's an even smaller segment of people. So for us to make a product that is commercially viable, we can't have the same price on that product as we do for our beginner courses because there's far few people who are interested in purchasing it. So we need to make a product that we can justify asking $200 for, $300 for, because it might be, a smaller number of people who purchase it. And that's the tricky part. How do we make something that is advanced, but also worthy of asking for that higher price point? And we try a lot of ideas, a lot of approaches to do that. We're constantly playing around with that. And sometimes we put a line through it because we're like, well, it's not quite going to give people what we need to give them. But yeah, it's definitely, I'm just trying to share a little bit behind the curtain there so people aren't thinking that we're neglecting or ignoring that request. But we don't do anything that is going to have our community look at it and say, you're just trying to rip us off here, or, that's not worthy of our money or what have you.
Yeah, there's a couple of other options for advanced courses out there too. Like Jason Wyman has his multiplayer mastery course, and Thomas Brush and Code Monkey. Well, I'm not sure what Code Monkey's cost is, but Thomas Brush's courses are pretty premium.
Yeah.
We had another question in the live chat. Rage Run Games is asking any tips on improving game designing skills.
Tips on improving game design skills. The first tip is do game jams and be wacky and crazy. The second tip is to find. Okay, there's two bits for me as a game designer. That's what my more formal education when it comes to games is in game design. There's two big buckets. There's the idea at the start, and then there's the execution at the end, where the game design mindset and skills are very important. I think at the start, it's very important to do something that you go beyond where you're comfortable going in terms of the design of it. What I mean by that is if you're making a racing game, don't just make a racing game where you race around normally with, little jumps and whatever. If you make a jump, make the jump so that you're in the air for 30 seconds and you have to kind of guide it and dive through rings, because racing games typically don't do that so much. Maybe Mario Kart does. I accidentally used the Mario Kart example there. Put guns on the cars, have the cars go really slow, and every 30 seconds, everyone goes at like so quickly. So you're spending 30 seconds like, okay, I'm going to plan my move. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I'm going to get this. I'm going to push that button. And you queue up all of the commands. And then it's every 30 seconds is like, go. And everyone's doing their things. And then that's for 5 seconds, frantic for 5 seconds. So that's completely strange and weird and different. I think you have to really push the envelope to do something that you find a little bit uncomfortable and is silly. So, other examples, if you're making an RPG, I think I even did this in one of our RPG courses. What happens if I make 10 player characters all running around with the same command scheme. Oh, I've made a little club. Oh, that's kind of interesting. What if I make a mob-based RPG? There's mob-based RPGs out there, but what if I do it this particular way? And I can only control, they all have to move at the same time. So if I make them all move left, half of them might fall into the fire pit, and I'm like, that whatever. So I think that's at the start of becoming a better designer, is really think differently, or think crazy. And then at the back end of it, it's tuning and playing and getting feedback from people in terms of how does it feel. It's so much about the feel. And you've got to look at the moment of when I shoot. Does that feel powerful when I shoot? And when I jump, does that feel exciting when I jump? And it could just be a bit of screen shake, some particles, that will make all the difference. So game feel, paying attention to game feel and really putting time and effort and love into it is so critical as well. It's a million times better to have one feature in your game that is tight and feels amazing. It's so much better to do that than to have 4 features that feel just sort of blah. Like, so much better.
That's good advice. So I think how long we're just over the hour mark here. I know we had a little bit of a late start because of the technical hiccups at the beginning. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with my audience before we wrap it up?
I think, well, I was going to give a piece of advice about be part of a community and share your ideas and work together and ask for help. But I think your community is probably already doing that, because if anyone who's already watching this sort of video and hanging out with you and maybe part of our community already, but it's critical not to, like, don't game dev alone is my point here. And it's such a wonderful community when you find people who are interested in the same things. Like, oh, you make games in Unreal. I make games in Unreal. Oh, you like shooters. I like shooters. Let's trade notes. I've got a game I'm working on. Would you mind having a look at it? And so don't do it in isolation. And that's a big force, I think, in game development, that there's just so many hours you need to be sitting in front of your computer, just kind of wrestling with the code and wrestling with the engine, that you can look up one day and say, oh, dang, I've just spent 3 months just heads down in my thing, waiting for the time that it's ready. It's not ready yet. I'm waiting. It's not ready yet. Okay, it's not ready yet. Not ready yet. You've got to show people what you're working on when it's not ready and when it's broken, when it doesn't make sense. Even if you say, well, just pretend you can jump over that thing there and just pretend there's an enemy coming in. That's one big bit of it, showing people, getting that feedback, but looking to find friends in the community. Even, Jason's story popped up in your chat. And I'm like, oh, I know Jason. I've talked to him. Yay. Hi, Jason. And that for me is an antidote to what a lot of indie game developers can feel, which is isolation and loneliness. So I think go out of your way to make sure you don't feel that isolation and loneliness, so that you can easily tap into a conversation that motivates you and energizes you, so long as it doesn't become too much of a distraction.
Yeah.
I spent 8 hours, in the community taking Rick's advice and chatting with people, and 10 minutes working on my game. It's like, maybe the balance can be a little bit more, a little bit better balance than that. So,
yeah, well, if you can get a mastermind group, find a mastermind group to join, that's awesome. I'm in a group that formed at Jason Wyman's Game Dev Guild 2 years ago, and we've been meeting every week ever since. So we may have missed 2 weeks over that entire time. And there's 5 of us, and most weeks, at least 4 or 5 of us are there. And like you said, you can show them your game in its early stages and get feedback. I'm making a math game for Legends of Learning, and the game is very different because of the feedback I got from the mastermind group than it would have been otherwise. Discord, there's a lot of really good game dev servers on Discord. Jason's Story is one. So that's a really good community. There's some communities on Reddit, even on LinkedIn. There's some indie game dev groups that I'm a member of on LinkedIn, and you can post. People post articles up there. You can post things you're working on up there and get feedback, show off your stuff, and it's also good if you're building a portfolio to be able to share it on LinkedIn. Like when I put out a new tutorial video, I almost always post it up there on LinkedIn as well. But anything
Yep.
else before we
The,
wrap
the
it
other
up?
thing I want to say is we have our annual game jam coming up next month. I think it's the 17th of May that it starts. It's for 10 days. We do weekend to weekend. And anyone who is serious about being a professional game developer needs to be forcing themselves to participate in a game jam at least once or twice a year, because it's a pressure release valve for all the cool ideas that are going to be a distraction. It's like, I'm working on my shooter. I've been working on it for 9 months. You know what? I'm getting a bit sick of it. I really would wish I could go do something else. Okay, spend a little bit of time, work on a game jam, just try some really crazy new things, and then come back to your project. So it's great from that point of view. It's also really, really, really important for someone who is new and looking to build up their skills and confidence in game development. Go into a game jam, make something that's trash, that looks dumb, doesn't work, is broken, full of bugs. No one's going to judge you badly, particularly in our community. We're going to celebrate the fact that you actually push the submit button, even if the game is the character moves and jumps and game over. That's it. It's like, cool, well done. We celebrate that. And one of the things we do to try to be the the good folks is that anyone who submits their game gets their choice of one free course from our portfolio. So any free course you want, just as a, what can we give to people to encourage them to actually, have the courage to submit? Well, cool. Here's a course for you. Maybe it'll be something that you wanted or is helpful or useful. So I'd love if as many people possible come along and participate in our game jam, 17th of May, coming up soon.
And if you can collaborate with other devs in a game jam, that'd be even better. You can divvy up the work and bounce ideas off each other, learn from each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's tough, isn't it, Greg, to find someone to partner up with on a game jam? I don't know them. I haven't worked with them before. I don't trust them. However, if you can try, hey, let's make a thing. You do that and I'll do this. That can start a really great connection with someone. If you do have a nice experience with someone in a game jam, then you've got a lifelong friend that you can make games with. It's one of the best ways to find someone.
Mm-hmm. And local meetup groups are another option you can check in your area. Look at meetup.com or nextdoor.com, and there's bound to be some groups in your area that you could meet and face to face every once in a while. Well, Rick,
Absolutely.
thanks so much again for joining my channel and sharing all your great tips and wisdom with us. And I apologize, everyone, for all the technical glitches at the beginning, but we persevered and we made it through it.
My pleasure. Thanks very much, Greg. I really appreciate you inviting me along, and I appreciate everything you're doing out there in the community. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you too, Rick. Have a good one.